hand over to another doctor now, live from Kalgoorlie, Dr. Chris Cairns, Stavely Minerals. Thank you, Chris.
There we go. Everyone good?
All clear.
Great. Yeah, thank you very much, Greg. Good lead in. I'll just jump into it, time constraints and all, and leave some time for questions later on. I've taken a few ESG slides out of this, but certainly echo Simon's comments with respect to the decarbonizing of economies and the drivers for copper. Probably historically the greatest set of circumstances for copper, including, I suppose, the age of some of the major producers. So there's not many new opportunities coming in first world jurisdictions. We took an early view on the Stavely Belt Cambrian geology, so it's a little bit old, 500 million years old. We were supported by the GSV in that they'd done some work on the continental margin of Australia at the time, and that this was prospective for porphyries, even though there was no known mining in the belt previously. We IPO'd in 2014 after having consolidated a commanding land position, drilling away for the previous 5 years until in September last year we made a shallow discovery on the Cayley lode. The discovery intercept was 32 meters at 5.88% copper and a gram gold, 58 grams silver from 62 meters depth. So we were away and we're into a very intensive resource drill out at the moment, 40 by 40 spacing from surface to about 200 meters. We've defined mineralization over a strike extent of 1.5 kilometers. We have drilled in other structures in this system down to 1100 meters. So it's a very tall system, as these systems tend to be. But we've never seen a Magma Butte type system in Australia. So it's been, we forgive ourselves for taking 50 drill holes to get there, but we're onto it now. We've got about 50 holes into the 0 to 200 meter shallow resource that we're looking to define for a phase 1 open pit. And then when we go into a scoping study after announcing that resource, we'll move those drills back into defining the deeper structural controlled mineralization and other structures that we know are mineralized. So there are a lot of opportunities. We have got intercepts in other structures. I'll talk about those. And we are very blessed in terms of cash, as at the end of August, $32 million. That'll get us through the resource drill out into and through the scoping study. So the next time that we need some funds, we'll have a very clear set of numbers in the market in terms of resource and what the opportunity looks like in terms of potential production. Normal graph, we made the discovery a little over 12 months ago. We got smashed like everybody else did during the initial phases of COVID, but we're coming back again. Share price today, I believe about 62 cents, market cap not stretched at $150 million with 30 odd million dollars in the tin. So we're not stretched. Management team ex-Integra Mining. We've put projects into production before. It's not a big thing for us. So we're pretty happy with where we're at in terms of moving this forward through the economic studies. Located in Western Victoria, about 3 hours to the west of Melbourne. There's no hobby farms or anything like that, as you can see in the picture. It's relatively flat farmland, industrial scale, commercial farming, and currently 4 drill rigs on the ground. As mentioned, we had focused on discovering a porphyry that we felt, previous explorers hadn't drilled deep enough. In doing that, we did have a couple of intercepts in high-grade structurally controlled zones, which led to the recognition that, in fact, this was a magma type system. And so that really culminated in drilling on this northwest structure that you see in the black dash there. It's the bounding structure to a chalcocite blanket that is developed on these high-grade structurally controlled veins that come up to surface. So a chalcocite enriched blanket between 30 and 80 meters below surface for 28 million tons at 0.4% copper. But we knew that there was a system driving this, and that was our whole impetus for getting into this area. And it wasn't until we got into that intercept on the Cayley lode that really started to hit our straps. So we had drilled quite a number of holes up to 49, looking for the deep porphyry, but then on the right-hand side with the yellow arrow, changed our focus to shallow, structurally controlled mineralization. And that was a game changer, as we say, September last year. So as mentioned, 32 meters, 5.88% copper, gram gold, 62 meters depth. So just quite spectacular in terms of the pictures. See early stage pyrite, then cut by the purple bornite in stripes. And on the left-hand side, the purple bornite and also gray silvery chalcocite, so hypogene chalcocite, 80% copper in the mineral. And that results in some very high grades locally within the intercept, including 2 meters at 40% copper, 3 grams gold, and half a kilo silver. And strangely, of course, another interval, 4.4 meters at 4% nickel and almost 0.25% cobalt underneath that, downhole. Really, that we don't see that as commercial, but what we do believe it says is that this fluid is quite unusual. It's very low pH. It's strongly oxidized, and it's got incredible metal carrying capacity. And so effectively what it's done is at depth, it's dissolved an ultramafic and then precipitated the contained nickel and cobalt higher up as nickel and cobalt sulfides. So just a great metal carrying capacity in the fluid system, and it's a very, very large system. So well into the resource drill out, on the graphic, we've drilled north of the railway in the little triangle. We have an access issue. We're negotiating with the farmer for that ground. We believe there's about 300 meters of extension to the system to the south there. We have drilled under his fence, and we've hit at about 350 meters, 23 meters at over 1% copper and 0.11 gold. So we know it's there. Currently, we're focused at extending up to the north. We've got 4 drill rigs on site, so there's a lot of core coming out, but we're suffering from the same situation as every other explorer. Our drill core comes to WA for processing, and so we're in the same laboratory as every other gold explorer in WA. So we've got a lot of material in the lab, but it's a little bit frustrating waiting for the results to come through. But there's a lot of news flow. 4 rigs turning, 2 other rigs turning up in November to drill 1.5 kilometer drill holes testing for the porphyry. I'll touch on that later. So we're drilling a tight 40 by 40 because we want a large proportion of resources into indicated category, and that allows us then to launch into a scoping study, during which time drills will redeploy and start fleshing out the deeper mineralization. But the scoping study will hopefully be able to define sort of volumes and financials by having a high level of confidence in the resource. And the long section is looking like this. This needs a little bit updating. It's open in all directions. We've defined it over 1.5 kilometers. And in other structures, there's a number of structures I'll show in another slide. We've drilled it down to 1,100 meters depth. So this is one of these very laterally extensive and vertically extensive systems. And we do believe that there's a porphyry below driving this. So some recent drill intercepts, very strong intercepts on an ultramafic contact. On the left-hand side, hole 87. I won't go through all of these results. People can review them at their own leisure, but the point I will make is that hole 87's got 87 meters at 1.74% copper and 0.57 grams gold. That'll be lovely in an open pit. It'll pull down on that sort of grade and width. It's probably in excess of 50 meters true width. But importantly, and typical of these intercepts, there are higher grade subintervals that are very coherent as well. So 24 meters at 4.2% and 1.25 grams gold, and another 9 meters at 4.1% copper and almost 2 grams gold. We see that consistently, those higher grade zones being very coherent. And that's going to be very important when we start talking about a phase 2 underground. So very, very nicely put together zone of mineralization. But the other intercepts likewise show bigger, broader zones of mineralization with narrower, coherent zones of higher grade, again, relevant to the underground story as we move through defining those deeper hits. So Greg has mentioned and has been complicit in helping us recognize and understand the system that we're dealing with, given that it is very unusual for Australia. And it does just demonstrate all of the attributes of that magma system, that high-grade structurally controlled Lode-Style mineralization, vertically, laterally extensive multiple structures. And we do see this sulfide species zonation, which gives us a vector towards that porphyry with the higher sulfidations, copper sulfides appearing at depth and potentially giving us a vector to the porphyry. So the porphyry, of course, is a very attractive target to us, and there's no drilling in this part of the world at anywhere near these sorts of depths for us. You can see in the structural setting that we're putting together, and Greg talks about wanting to look for dilatant structures. Well, this is the setting for us during subduction in 500 million years ago. A little open basin. The ultramafic contact fault hosts the Cayley lode, the UCF. And then behind that, we have another copper lode splay. It shows in this airborne EM image. And there's a lot of drilling to do yet in these structures. Currently, we're just focused on the shallow bit of the ultramafic contact fault, but we've got a lot more drilling to do in these other structures that we do know are mineralized. To that effect, shallow discovery on the UCF in hole 50. We've got mineralization on the UCF underneath that low angle structure, just a gentle late offset. The copper lode splay, we've also got 6 meters at 6.7% copper and almost a gram gold, and a second hit at 10 meters at 2.5% copper and 0.3 gram gold. And then down around 800, 900 meters on that north-south structure, a couple of drill holes into that with some quite good grades, including almost 20 meters at 3.5% copper and 0.3 grams gold. So again, just underpinning that it's a very laterally and vertically extensive system. Our objectives are pretty clear. We want to complete the resource drill out on that shallow mineralization. Think of this as the material available for a phase 1 open pit. Then we move into a phase of defining the deeper mineralization on these multiple structures towards looking what an underground might look like as well. We've got regional targets and we've got that porphyry at depth as well. So we can envisage that we've got a phase 1 open pit. Off that would come a decline, and the underground would spiral in between mineralized structures, accessing mineralized structures on either side at a vertical rate of advance of 50 to 60 meters per year. You could consider that mineralized structures down to 1 kilometer will have somewhere in the order of 20 years mine life. So we're talking about a really long life asset, and really we've just got to get through the work and prove it up and de-risk it. Just on the porphyry, very quickly, we did 2 lines of seismic earlier this year. This is what it looks like. There's a video on our website that gets you to what the reflectors are. We believe it's the interface between the phyllic alteration that Greg was talking about coming over top of the potassic alteration, a big acoustic impedance contrast, and that's where we're getting reflectors. So 2 concurrent deep drill holes, 1,500 meters each, going in, commencing in November, probably be finished around mid-February. Very exciting. So there's that animation address. So the plan is, as I've mentioned, just drill out the shallow portion of the Cayley lode for the open pit. We'll go into a scoping study on that, redeploy into defining the lode at depth, pick up those parallel structures, etc., and then demonstrate that we've got a phase 1 open pit that justifies the development, and then we've got a phase 2 underground that has a long life in the magnitude of about 2 decades. So, and we've got other targets to test as well, regionally and in the immediate vicinity. The discovery team, there's Greg on the left, myself in the middle. You know, it's been a great ride, but we're just early on this journey. We've got a lot of drilling to do and a lot of value to create. So we've got a key position. It's an unusual style for Australia, but certainly it's behaving itself in terms of the model. We've got it from surface to over 1 kilometer down. Currently, we've just focused on 20% of 3 known mineralized structures to date. We've got the porphyry out there and additional regional targets. Thank you very much for your time.